Oh, crap. Sorry. I have to change the screen size. Bear with me. I don't usually do this. I have to do that. I think I'm okay now. Sorry, everybody. I can't be perfect all the time. Now we're good. Sorry.
It's all right. It's okay. Technical glitches there.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Canadians with Disabilities and Their Allies. Thank you for tuning in today. The show is also known as PWD Allies Podcast, and check out your podcast on Spotify, Apple Music. You can do a Google search and find the show there, or go to daddybentlegs.com and click and subscribe to the channel. Today, I have Michael Scott joining me. Michael is going to be talking about music, poetry, and mental health. Hello, Michael. How are you?
Hello. Good. Thanks.
Yeah, right on. Thanks for joining me today. Lots to dive into, and you're also a very strong advocate for persons with disabilities too.
I definitely work to be that way, and really for everyone, but especially people that need it the most, and that's often people living with disabilities.
Well, I know when you reached out through email, you were talking about stigma a lot. Like the stigma is a big piece for you, right? And of course, when we're talking about disability stigma is huge. And so, I mean, we can dive into that today as well.
Yeah, I love poetry too, and lots of variety of music. So when you caught my eye when I was just reading through about all the poetry, and like, wow, this is awesome. This would be a great conversation too. So what got you into poetry, Michael?
Elementary school. I actually published with the school district. We had, I guess, 4 years of publications. A little bit different back then, but I also in university I started as an English major, and I took a lot of poetry classes. My favorites were the Romantics, and then I was an electrician for a while, and I got more into poetry again. Stuff on Twitter kind of pushed me in that direction, and I've been writing pretty substantial amounts over the last couple of years. I've got 160,000 words on my site right now, which is a novel anyways. So.
It's impressive. That's very impressive, and then it kind of blends into music too. What kind of music do you like?
I like rock music. That's kind of my main area, but I also like lots of other types of music, mostly the stuff you hear on the radio. But I also have a lot of friends that play music, and I've been playing again since elementary school. And
well, again, you said you caught the Biff Naked episode, and you said you were really impressed by that episode. So that's why you reached out to us, and I really like that episode a lot too, because you know that was where I was talking to her about her, how she did her writing, because like I've said, I mean I've only written I've gotten one book officially published, and then I kind of did one unofficially. That's just I just put it up there. I didn't officially publish it. The kind of the sequel, right? But I mean, and when I wrote my book, like I said, it was just kind of I did it as a when I was initially when I was 22, and I was on break from college, and I kind of thought, well, just to give myself something to do over the summer break, I'll just do something kind of fun. And I wanted to write about something, and it's like, what did I write about? And so you think, well, let's write about what I know, and of course you know about yourself, right? And the other reason why I wanted to do that too is, like I said on this podcast, is that everything that I had read previously about disability, like all these memoirs and stuff, most of it or movies or TV or whatever, it's like most of the narrative is like, oh, pity me, life sucks, and this is kind of what we see echoed nowadays, is like, or this is kind of the narrative almost being pushed by the government itself, is like, if your life sucks, we're going to go and give you an opportunity to end it now with MAiD, and I mean, so anyway, to get back to the reason why I wrote, I just wanted to show, I wanted to put something out into the ether, out to the universe of, like, you know what, I have a disability and my life doesn't suck. Exactly. My life is actually, there's a lot of humor in my life, and I wanted to share that part too. Like, yes, it's not all, like I said before, it's not all like a bed of roses. I mean, life is hard. It's hard for everybody, and it's definitely hard if you have a disability. But I wanted to at least acknowledge that life doesn't all suck. I wanted to at least show the fun part of a disability, or at least kind of the lighter side of things. I wanted to put that out there, right? And
Well, that's why, like, music and poetry, it really blends it well together, and that's why I find it very intriguing when you write poetry and the type of music that you love to listen to, and putting those two together, it's almost like a story. You can also almost make like a story out of the poetry with the music in a way.
Yeah, I'm always looking for a way to move forward, and you said, like, people say, oh, pity me, and I have such a hard life, and that, and I also have come through with I have a significant mental health condition, and I battled through it in the 90s. I was in and out of hospital for over 10 years, and I've always tried to move forward and live a good life, and then help other people live a good life and share the ways that I've made that happen for myself. And what does happen is you get the stigma because people don't see that part of it, and it's a way to get past that, is to show we have disabilities or conditions that are limiting us, but we can get through that and live a good life. And people develop too much stigma and don't think we can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And and bringing the awareness of what you go through and what you have gone through and how to move forward, and just working with it, and letting people know that it's okay. Like, it's okay to talk about these things, to talk about mental health and disabilities. And it's a stigma, I think, in society, of saying, well, it won't, that nothing happens to me. Like, I'm feeling okay, or I look okay. But the underlying issue is there's a lot of disabilities that are hidden. There's a lot of mental health, that is out there, but there's help that the tools can work with the person and work with them, and give them the tools and the resources and the financial needs that they need. And there's so many things to pile in on that. I mean, I had a friend of mine who, had mental health, and unfortunately, the outcome I wish that he was here today, because the system basically let him slip away. So it's very unfortunate that, and that's why I think, advocacy is so important, to bring the awareness to the issues, and work with people. And what you're doing is amazing too. I know we were talking just before off air. You mentioned that working with children with disabilities too.
Yeah, I work as a child and youth worker. I have done that full time, sometimes 44 hours a week, but always at least 40 for the last 3 years. And the mental health piece, when there's labels put on stuff, sometimes it brings in the stigma, and people can't get past that, and they do suffer, and the worst things can happen. And it doesn't just come from the people around us, it also comes from the institutions, the hospitals, the schools, the government, and it also comes from ourselves, because we develop self-stigma, where we hear so much negative around us that we all of a sudden internalize that, and unfortunately that can be very, very harmful. So I also work for a group called the Stigma Free Society. Please Google them. We do all sorts of promotions to get past stigma, including we go into classrooms on Zoom and Teams and talk to kids about mental health and stigma, and not just mental health, but also discrimination of all kinds, because discrimination impacts mental health. And
well, just on yesterday's show, for the last 4 weeks or so, and yesterday as well, we've been talking about basically Captain Obvious statements, right? Disability for Dummies was a 4-part series, and we're talking about Captain Obvious things, and yesterday's show we were talking about provincial legislation or provincial disability legislation. And Mike, you were saying like it's not just stigma that's permeates in society, like just from our small circle of people. It starts at the top, right? When you, this is kind of a point that I wanted to make yesterday really, so I'm actually glad we're making it now, is like when I work, like I've said before, I've worked for about 20 years, and I've been truly blessed with really, really, really good employers, bosses that will actually go to the wall, go through the wall for you, right? And really trust you as an employee, and say, you know what, Neil, I really trust that you can do this, and they will go through the wall for you. And I mean, I've never had a bad boss. I really haven't, and I like that really, and but so my point is, like, when you have a good boss or a good work environment, that starts at the top, right? That starts with the leadership at the top, and it's the same thing with government too. Good government starts with good leadership at the top. If you have, like we were talking about yesterday, when you have legislation that's loaded with stigma, disability stigma, like we were looking through the legislation and the policy yesterday in BC, and it's loaded with pink unicorns and disability stigma and thou shalt not statements, and if you get arrested and all that kind of stuff, right? Like it's all very, very punitive, and it's all like, well, if you're disabled, you deserve this shit. Really, right? That's right. That's the added that's baked into the policy. If you're disabled, you deserve discrimination. You deserve a pile of shit. There you go. It's baked.
Well, I think what.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think what happens is it's often based on a misunderstanding, and then they see this group of people that are kind of in some ways powerless. So those people are taking money out of the system. So let's try to just give them less, and it's a really terrible thing. But I think, if we keep on trying to move forward, put the book out, like you said, that I live a good life, and I'm not just a waste. I'm never gonna, just draw from the system. I'm always pushing to make people better, and then, we push it from the bottom, the tail wags the dog, so to speak.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's a good point.
I always say it's like you're pushing up that mountain, right? You're just constantly pushing upward and then forward. And there's so many people have so much to give in life. Everyone has value, and value in whoever they are. Is it that they put value into the community that they live in? Do they shop locally, or do they go and they work part-time or full-time, whatever the case may be? I mean, everyone has a value. And if the government puts a stigma on them saying, well, no, they're just a drain on the system, then there's a serious flaw in society. And how do we take care of our citizens? And one way or another is like they're citizens. They're still taxpayers one way or another. They buy things and they pay tax.
They're living, feeling human beings.
Yeah. And we've talked before too a lot on the podcast in previous episodes about that there really is this over reliance on this idea that your identity is based on employment.
Yes.
Like,
right. Yeah.
When you meet somebody for the first time, what's the very first question somebody usually says? The first question is like, what is your name? What is your name? And the very second question is, what do you do?
What do you do for work?
It's what's your name and what do you do, right?
Yeah.
And so it really puts a really overemphasis on if you don't have a job, if you're disabled and you can't work, then you must not have value. And that is just wrong, because we've also talked about this idea that, everybody has, we talked, like, actually when I had, you remember when I had Alan on,
right.
Alan Davies, and he's a photographer. I'm a photographer, and we talked about, when you capture the essence of a person in a photograph, right? You can see the life. You can see the life in a person when you capture that essence of a person in a photograph, a portrait. You're capturing that moment. You're capturing the essence of a person. Every person has an essence, regardless of whether they work or not. Every person has an essence. Everybody is, like we've said before, everybody is a stone you throw in a pond.
Yeah.
So everybody's throwing that stone in a pond and making ripples,
Yeah.
and those ripples ripple out to other people and affect other people. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if that person ever holds a job in their life. They're still creating ripples and positive impacts on other people. And like I said, they it doesn't matter if you don't work. That's not the essence of, like, I can look at you, Brent, and I can say, well, your essence isn't dependent on what you've done in the past, like your job. That's not your true essence of your person. Yeah. Right?
To me, we're all connected. And I have a bachelor's degree in psychology as well, and studied, all the classics. But, Jung, for example, said we have the collective unconscious. But there's no other way to look at it. But we are connected. We all have feelings. We all have emotions, in animals too, and if you disregard something, you're still hurting the whole, right? So if you try to brush off this group of people because they're not doing whatever to turn in light bulbs or take out the garbage or whatever, well, they're still feeling beings, and that feeling is part of the whole, and we need to keep that together.
Oh, absolutely. And it gives the person that feel of inclusion, of being part of society, of their welcome, of like we're accepting that person for who they are, as that person. And as like and I talk about this all the time on the podcast. I mean, as we get older, we're going to get more disabilities. We're going to get other impairments, maybe that are just definitely not. You don't see them physically. Yeah, I mean they're invisible. They're not even diagnosed. I mean, and so as we get older, we just have to accept it. But as society has to accept it too, from our institutions, and say, well, just because they say they're a senior with a disability and well, they can't work any longer, or maybe they can, but they're limited on what they can do. But give them the financial resources, give them the tools that they need to help them with whatever they're trying to do. But without giving that and saying, okay, and I'm not going to pile in about MAiD, but it's like saying, oh well, you're suffering, we can't give you the tools, so then you're not a taxpayer anymore, or you're not giving what the government wants you to give or what society thinks that they should give. And so I think everyone has value, and I'm glad we're talking about it because it's so important, about accessibility wise too. And maybe we can dive in a little bit about accessibility. Like in my view, like I'm really strong on about transit, about accessibility too, and about businesses and making sure that people have reliable means to get around, about businesses having the accessibility ramps to get up to. I mean, I've come across a lot of that, Michael, lately, that even like a subway, I don't go to Subway too much. I'm not a huge fan. I mean, well, maybe once in a while. But there's one area here that there's stairs that go down. I thought, are you kidding me? Like, how can you not make that accessible? And first person I think about is Sonia. We were talking about this a couple of days ago, and I thought, she goes, Neil wouldn't get to make his way down here. I said, no, I'd have to pick him up and put him. Here you go, Neil. Bring you down.
Well, as we're transitioning between personal self-worth and this idea of accessibility, there's a transition point where you can kind of straddle two things. I hope I make myself clear, and that's that. Again, like this idea that I don't think worth should be tied to employment, and it's here's a truth, and that is that people with disabilities are in actual fact a huge economy driver. We are a huge economy driver, whether we're working or not. We like if you think about, like, for example, every 5 years or something, I have to buy a scooter, or I'm getting scooter repairs, or I'm getting new crutches, or I'm going and getting massages, or like my first wife, she had 24/7 carrieds, so she had like 6, 7 carrieds maybe that were getting employed caring for her, right? So so just on that basis, we're driving the economy, and then you're talking about accessibility too, right? Well, think about all the investments. Think about all the investments that are made in society, that are made, good investments that are made to push the economy forward, and to make you make the there's the point made that if you build a ramp, everybody can use it. Versus, if you build it,
they will come.
Yeah, if you build a ramp, everybody can use it. Versus a set of stairs, right? So there again, if you have workers, you have workers that are building these ramps, and all of that is it's pushing the economy. And so, we are directly responsible for a lot of the economy being pushed. And
it's about. Sorry.
Go ahead.
It's about the worth, and we were talking about the feelings. That's someone's well-being, someone's quality of life is worth. And there's so much extravagance and decadence up at the high ends that that ramp or that accessible water fountain, whatever it may be, means so much more to these people than the stuff that's in their 27th back room that they haven't seen in 5 years. So we got to bring that attention forward, and that's what I'm trying to do with my poetry. And it's not been something that every poem is about mental health and wellness, but that's my mission underlying that, and I kind of push forward with that and try to make it happen. And I've started doing the music as of a couple years ago, doing podcasts. Check out macromichael.com. And not all the songs you can really detect that, but they do apply to some extent towards wellness and the worth of everyone, the worth of all people and all creatures, really. And you know, you look through my poetry too, and you will find specific poems on disability and mental health. And I think that's the kind of stuff we need to open up the eyes of the people with their 27 bedrooms and help them realize that person who can't even go into a subway, you know, needs a ramp there, and it's not going to cost anything more to you, really. So I'm not to put you on the spot at all. But is there a particular piece of poetry that you'd want to share on the air, or you just want to push people over to your site? You know, I have so many committed to memory. You know, I don't know if you guys know who Deepak Chopra is.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's about meditation, and he's a doctor. He kind of worked with some of the top people in the world for a long time.
I think he's been on Oprah and things like that too. Yeah. I remember seeing on Oprah and things. Yeah,
kind of partnered. So it's
wonderful.
You know, I don't know if it's totally relevant to this conversation, because I don't have that many off the top of my head. If I could dig them out, I would. But depth to the depth, when shallow, I'm hollow. A breath in and out, time moves and I follow. Then in the west we call out Apollo. His best must be left in grooves that we follow. Daybreak has all of my plans. At night dream start all over again. Lighten the way every day. Success is the test, in fire I wallow. A splash of wisdom, a dash of defiance. I aim to be close to established compliance, but I can't complain. We do need change to challenge the system, to set a new stage. So today I buck history of mine in the world, try to redesign meaning of words we've unfurled, bright ideas, dark days. My optimism is pure, work and believe in. Confess to the rest when shallow or hollow. Guess to be best, the world shouts aloud, called. The rest must be blessed in grooves that we follow. And then it goes on. So I'm going to leave it there.
That's good.
Oh, wow. That's fabulous. I like it.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Yeah.
It really puts a lot of meaning into, if you really put it into context of what people go through on a day-to-day basis. Like if you really analyze it, and I was listening very carefully, and I could really put a few things into mind on that, for sure.
Deepak loved that one on X. He gave me the big happy face with the heart eyes, so I like that. Kind of got me going, and I will give a shout out to Biff Naked too, who has appreciated some of my poetry and really been a driving force since a few years ago when those people were giving me some inspiration, and then I've just started writing more and more, and it's actually come together a little bit.
Yeah, Biff Naked is so wonderful. She's just such a genuine, just a down-to-earth person, and you know, and she puts her music into context. Like you could just really, if you just listen carefully, all the words and stuff. And I'm glad that she's had an inspiration for you too, to really push forward and with your poetry.
Biff's a poet of epic proportions.
She's amazing.
Well, like we've said before, I mean, not everybody turns their celebrity to good, right? But she's an example of a celebrity that's really turning, you know, her fame that she has. She's turned that into like really strong advocacy, and that you always really love to see that, right? Because you know, I've always said within the disability community, unfortunately, there's a kind of a big void, right? I mean, like I've said, with Terry Fox, like I was about 12 years old, and people can do the math if they want, but I was about 12 years old. I think that's about right. When
way back
when Terry Fox passed away.
Yeah.
But at 12 years old, before he passed away, I so remember all of those news conferences that I shouldn't say all. I mean, he didn't. I mean, there's a few big ones that he had, right? One was in Ontario. I remember it was like standing up and there's a shitload of people there, and like he didn't say the words bullshit, right? But he was basically calling out bullshit. He's basically saying,
probably thinking it though.
he was basically saying, like, come on, Canada, like, wake up, smell the coffee, and like,
that's the whole world.
Acknowledge people with disabilities, and
he's one of my biggest heroes.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, like he was the one guy. If you were going to just say one guy in all of Canada, I'm being dead serious. One guy in all of Canada that represented Canada to a T. Like, if you were going to distill Canada down to one instance or one person, one instance, he would be that guy for me. Like, seriously.
Oh yeah.
He like I'm not even like waxing poetic or exaggerating. Like, he was that guy. He represented Canada in so many ways. Like, this is what it means to be Canadian. This is what it means to, like, strive to be better. Like, to be, like, we were saying, like, yesterday, to be a good human and to call out bullshit. He was that guy. And
he just called it what it was. He just called it what it was.
And unfortunately, like we said before, there's not enough people in power with disabilities that, and the ones that have the ones that do have disabilities with power, they're not using their power for good. And it pisses me off. You have.
Well, if he can do what he did, and I do get choked up often when I see something about him or anything. He's, like, so powerful. Where is everyone else? Because and we should be making as much effort as we can that he did for his cause as we do for our causes, and bring them together too.
I remember exactly the day when he passed, but I mean, watching the footage on TV though, he just kept on going. I mean, it was pouring rain out, I mean, bad weather conditions, and he just kept on pushing himself right to the limit. And when I was actually delivering newspapers at the time, and I remember the day, I was right on the front page, and it put a tear in my eye. And I thought, this he's a man, of such high integrity, and like he just want to keep pushing himself. I'm thinking, if he can do it, anyone can do it.
And I even remember when they brought the cameras into the hospital bed. Remember, he had to go in the hospital. He was in the hospital bed, and he was saying, the doctors have told me that the cancer's returned, and he had tears in his eyes, like he was crying. He says, and he said, the doctors have told me that the cancer returned. It's come back really aggressively. But even then he said, if I can get out of bed and go back to my marathon, he says, I'm going to do it.
Like, I'm not saying everyone can.
Yeah.
He's so rare.
I know. We're not saying that. We're not saying that everybody should be.
Yeah, we do have ability to, like, do what we're doing right now for our community. And you guys, and I like to think that I'm doing my part as much as I can, whenever I can, with my stuff. Terry Fox exception, like
kind of a one of a kind, yeah.
Oh yeah.
But it doesn't mean that other, especially like we were saying, even today and yesterday, like leadership starts at the top, like we were saying. And so if you're a leader like if you're a voted in leader, don't phone it in. Don't phone it in. Like, you know, like don't take shortcuts, and don't say, well, you know, I've been voted in, and I'm it doesn't matter. I'll just take a shortcut and phone it in. You know, don't do that. Don't do that.
I think it is that empathy piece too. Like if we can get those people up at the top to see like what little effort they actually have to make or contribution from their masses of riches and everything to put in that ramp, or to, you know, make someone more comfortable who's suffering. You know, that's what we should be doing, and not just letting it slide, you know, because it's easy to.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you know, and I also look at the you know, at the school system too, as making things accessible for students. You know, and giving them the students the teachers' assistants, right? You give them the actual the aids that they need, and there's just so many cutbacks, and there's just not enough TAs out there to help the students right now. And of course, with population growth now also into the country, now they're, you know, suffering across the school districts, and now they're having like portables, and oh my gosh, I remember when I was in school, they started putting these portables around. I'm like, what are those? Yeah. I didn't like going to those portables because they were so cold, and I was like, oh man. But I remember stairs though, and you know, and there was never ramps, and I thought even back then, I thought, why is there no ramps? And then I had a couple students in my homeroom class, you know, they called the homeroom. And there was one, there was a lady who had slipped and fell one year. She slipped on some ice and down she went. So she was on crutches, okay? But there was a gentleman who was actually in a wheelchair who needed one of his classes was actually out there. So, you know, I still remember one of the teachers there, Michael, had said, well, you know what, I'm going to get the other teacher, or I'm going to get in the front part, and I'm going to get the back part, and actually lift you up and put you in. And you know what he said? He goes, how come I can't do it myself? Oh, well, we don't have it equipped for that. Well, why not? And I said, and I actually said then, I said, yeah, why not? Brent, you ask too many questions. We know what we're doing. It's fine. I go, okay, well, why don't I know? But he's saying that that's what he wants. So, yeah, and I was basically in the back of my mind, like, why not? Like, why can't you do these things to make things more accessible? And it was quite interesting because then going fast forward, you know, looking at all these businesses and say some of them are still not equipped. So I think it's just a systemic thing where businesses just haven't kept up with it, and it's probably saying, well, just
I remember going to school in elementary school and high school, you know, and same thing, like actually I always had you know, my fellow students would volunteer to be, oh, can I help take your crutches up and down the stairs, and if they did, they knew they could get out of class like 5 minutes early. It's like, oh, I have to help Neil up and down the stairs, so can I please be excused for the last 5 minutes, right? And you know, but you know, so that's how I managed, but then also too, like I think about when I went to UBC. I mean, I think most people that live here in BC know how huge that campus is. Oh yeah. And there was some times where I had a class at one end of the campus, and then I had like 10 minutes to boot it all the way across to like a farther corner of the campus. And for the life of me, I still don't know how I did it. But for some, like I was hardly ever late. Like I would leave one class and I had 10 minutes, and I would just boot it to the other end of the campus, and I'd still make it on time for the other class, right? And I don't think I could do that. I know I couldn't do that today, but I had to do that daily for like 5 years. I did that, like back and forth, you know. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Even at VCC, I went to VCC, and I tell you, that's a huge campus. Like not as big as UBC for sure, but I mean, one end of the building all the way across the other, and then upstairs, and or if the elevators were busy, oh no, up the stairs we go. Yeah. You know, and it's like got your workout.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So what are your experiences with that too, Michael? We're talking about, the campuses, and I mean, do you find it trying to get from one area to another area in a hurry? It was quite a challenge.
You've had, sorry to interrupt, but when we were talking through email on that, you said that you've had kind of direct exposure to people with disabilities, right? You've worked. I mean, you talked about your.
My son lives with. He's on PWD, right?
Okay,
and
yeah.
I also work every day for I guess 10 years now, actually, back to 2014. I've been doing support work for people with developmental disabilities as well as dealing with mental illness. Mm-hmm. And there's so many barriers that we don't recognize. We don't have that understanding, or not. That's kind of being a broad we, but a lot of people don't understand what the challenges are to people who have disabilities, and not just visible, like you're saying, but also the mental health challenges and the say, for example, anxiety. People don't understand how hard it is to get through anxiety for some people, and it's not just a convenient thing. Oh, I'm feeling anxious right now. Some people suffer from it, and it blocks them from doing things. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. In the universities, I hate to say it, we're often just a number, unless you're in with a certain group. And for sure, like going through my undergrad, I was in a lot of bad ways with mental illness at the time, in particularly bipolar disorder, or what was called bipolar disorder. But there's this label that is such a broad label. It doesn't really include everything, because unlike many people, or most people with that condition, I've never really experienced depression, but I've had a lot of anxiety, and it prevented me from doing a lot of things. And then the mania, where you're acting a little bit over the top sometimes. And even in the psychology class and visiting psychology professors, they didn't recognize it, or chose not to recognize it.
Well, actually, that's. Yeah. I'm glad we're talking about universities again, actually, because this is something that I actually haven't really talked too much about on the podcast, even though I have. But again, like my first wife, she had a fairly severe disability, arthrogryposis. People can look it up, and it basically is when your joints are fused from the womb, from birth. Your joints are fused. So she had a very significant physical disability, confined to a motorized wheelchair her whole life, essentially, and required 24/7 care aids. But anyway, that's kind of a side point. What I was saying, more or less, more importantly, is that for 17 years, despite her disability, profound disability, really, she was able to be a tremendously successful school teacher for the elementary school system in Langley, and like we said, she was able to teach her students how to become good humans. And what's interesting, I'm going to get to my point. What's interesting is she got into the teacher training. Like if you go back through time, she went through her teacher training. I guess it was a few years after I tried. Because I had went through, it was UBC. I had tried to go through and did my teacher training through UBC, and I failed. And the reason why I failed was you had a faculty advisor, and it was my last practicum, my last main practicum. They kind of got in cahoots with one another, the faculty advisor and my main classroom teacher. And they kind of had it in their brain already, and I'm just stating a fact. I'm not trying to damn them or anything. I'm just stating a simple fact where they had it in their brain already that that I was supposed to fail. You know,
stigma.
Yeah, it was stigma. Like here's a guy with a disability. He's not gonna make it. They already had it in their brain. That this guy is not gonna make it. And I hate to say that. But I mean, I'm just stating the truth. I'm only stating the truth. These two people, like, held their fate in my hands. They just, I could tell right from moment one, they decided this guy's not going to make it. Because you know, they both would say things like, for example, like, this is a couple of examples where they would say, like, you know, you're standing up in front of the class. Like, they would actually say this shit like this to me. Like, I was standing up in the front of the class and say, you know, you have bad posture, Neil. Like, with my crutches, and they would look at my bent legs and say, you have bad posture in front of the class. That was one thing they would say. And the other thing they would say is, like, you know, like, because I have cerebral palsy, I have messy writing on the blackboard, right? So right off the bat, I would say, like, my idea was, like, I acknowledged the fact that I had messy writing, but I thought, well, not a big deal. I'll just get a student to write up on the blackboard for me. No big deal, right? And both of them said it is a big deal. They're like, if you cannot write on the blackboard, you should not be a teacher. They both said that. You know,
rather than making an accommodation.
And there was no accommodation whatsoever. No attempt to accommodate. It was like they had it in their mind that I was going to fail because I have a disability, and self-fulfilling prophecy. No surprise, self-fulfilling prophecy. I did fail because they already had it in their mind that this guy has got a disability. He doesn't deserve to make it, you know. And it pissed me off that when the last day when they decided, like, we got to pull the plug, Neil, you're done. They waxed poetic. They waxed poetic about me. They said, "You're an amazing teacher. You're so amazing with the students. The students love you." And they went on and on and on. They just kept heaping shitload of like you're so amazing. You're so amazing. You're so amazing, and on and on and on. But like, here's the door. And I said, well, like, why are you bothering to heap all this praise on me, and then you're going to show me the door?
Yeah, like throwing out, and I'm just like, hey, see ya, like, get out of here.
And again,
trust me, I've been through that too. I mean, don't want to diminish what you're saying, but I've been through a very similar setting.
And the reason why I know 100% that it was disability discrimination, and I don't even want to mince it and pretend that it wasn't anything but that. And the reason why I know is because I have the example of my wife, my first wife, who was profoundly disabled, way more disabled than me, and she had nobody telling her, you know what, you're in your wheelchair, you have bad posture. You know, there was nobody telling her in her wheelchair that she had bad posture or that she had messy writing on the blackboard. She could not write she had no dexterity in her hands. She could not write on the back. She never wrote one word on the blackboard. She had all her students write every single word on the blackboard. And there was no teacher saying, if you can't write on the blackboard, you don't deserve to teach. Right? That's the difference. And it was like,
it is about,
right?
Sorry, it is about individuals too. Like, one person can be very understanding, have empathy, have very little stigma, and then you got, like, the case where you had the two, supervisors, and they just didn't have it, and that can cause another person to lose everything, really. If that other person doesn't have the strength to push further past that, they can be crushed by those people with stigma. And that's why we need to bring understanding to more people. And for disabilities, for mental health, the whole 9 yards, right? And I think it's about understanding, and we need to help people. And you guys are doing an awesome job. I've watched your podcast, so kudos to you.
Yeah, and thank you on that, Michael. yeah, there's lots to learn about what people go through on a day-to-day basis. It's academically, is it socially within the community, work-wise. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. It's like all inclusive. It's like include people in society and work with them. Work with that person the best way that one can do, right? And yeah, I mean, we take great pride in the podcast, and academically, like I can relate to exactly what you and Neil were just talking about. Through that, it's through the education part where, I mean, it's deja vu. I remember standing in front of the class, like we had to give a presentation, and I took several courses, but there was one course that, yeah, they wanted to railroad me out of it because it was like, oh, well, you're taking too long, Brent. You're taking too long. Like I couldn't write fast enough. Mm-hmm. And so I was faster typing. And they're like, yeah, but we want you to write this one out because that's what our project was. Mm-hmm. Well, I was taking too long. And they said, okay, well, maybe stay after class and you can work on it then. I said, oh, okay. But then I realized that I had to commute all the way from BCC all the way to Langley. So it was quite a commute, right? And I couldn't stay after as our project staying after class. I mean, as a groups to work with it. So they said, well, fine, take the assignment home. I go, well, then I need the adaptive equipment at home. No, we don't supply that at home. Like you gotta work on it.
You're such a bother, Brent. You're such a bother. Yeah. Stop being such a bother, Brent.
Yeah. And I said, well, can you not make it accessible for me? Can I not work at home? Well, we'd have to apply for another part of the college to get that authority, so you could have the equipment at home. And all it was just like another computer and a CCTV thing, and it was just making it bigger so I could actually read it faster, and then I could just tape it out, done. No, finally, anyway, long story short, I actually did get it. I actually had to keep pushing to get that. So I thought, yay, I could do this. And then I gave a presentation, and they're like, yeah. So, yeah, I think that maybe you're reading too far onto the script there. Like you weren't following, like on their other monitor. Like they had the overhead projector, and I couldn't read it because it was too far away. And yeah, and so they said, well, maybe we'll make it bigger print. Well, it was way too big, and I was losing track of where I was on this one screen. So to me, it was just like, accessibility wise, they just weren't getting it. And then the testing part, cognitive wise, I was having some difficulty in some of the stuff, and they said, well, sorry, this course is just not for you then. I said, well, no, I want to try. Can you make things, maybe we can work with it? No, like, I'm sorry, we've made that decision. Mm-hmm. And so what they did was they read everybody's grade out in class, and they said they weren't going to do that. They read everybody's name, the grade level, mm-hmm. what the score was. They read mine out. Mm-hmm. And remember, some students in the class were like, whoa, bravo, Brent. Well, you failed. And I remember I walked out of the class. I walked out. I never went back. I just looked at the teacher and I just walked away. And I was in tears, and they said, sorry. Like,
that's inexcusable what they did. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean? But it was, yeah, but anyway, long story short is, like I don't regret any classes, any courses I've taken. I mean, that was just it was too bad. Right. But it was, really good experience. So, and learning lots. And I love to learn lots, and that's why I learn lots from people now. And I found my knack. My knack is to learn from people, to understand what everyone goes through with the disabilities, or as an ally, what do they hear? What's involved in their life of people around them that have disabilities, and how can we work with like each other and change the system going forward, and like the institutions, and the schoolings, and the just people's lives in general, and how do we just make it more of an inclusive society for everybody. And I mean, I learn from everybody all the time. I'm learning from so many things, and that's why I find it very educational that way.
Sorry, I've been following along in the chat. There's a few people on chat. It's quite lively actually, but I just wanted to focus in on one particular comment. It's from World Fusion Music. Says, what happens when someone self-reports mental illness to the doctor in Canada? Can anybody speak to that?
I can speak to that. Yeah, immediately, and again, it's different for different people. Like one person is going to be very judgmental and immediately go to stigma. Another person might not so much. But my experience pretty much most of the time has been you're immediately going to be stigmatized. They're immediately going to be labeling you. And those labels, you know, especially in a mood disorder, for example, if you're in a very up mood, you'll get certain labels. And if you're in a down mood, you'll get other labels. And it's not really fair to pass that judgment. And that's part of the problem. Like what Brent was saying there is people pass these judgments, but they're not looking at the big picture and they're not looking at all the different angles. So we got to have more understanding. And, you know, if you're going to go into for a mental health diagnosis or to see someone about it, you know, make sure you got your ducks in a row, because you can be judged really quickly and those labels stick. Like for me, certain labels that I got have stuck, even though they're, if you asked a lot of people, they'd say that doesn't apply here. But, you know, everyone's different, and be aware of the labels, and put your best foot forward, and that's best I can say to that.
Yeah, exactly, and that's each individual person, the circumstances are different than say somebody else. I guess that's a good way of looking at it, because like a label, it's like society will put a label of, oh, that person has some difficulty with some areas. Well, okay, well then that's what, you know, they're having their disabilities affect them in a certain way versus somebody else it's not.
If somebody's having difficulty, bring them along. Yeah, you know,
exactly.
don't just discard them and say, well, you can't do it, sorry.
or it's like saying, well, one size fits all, and that's kind of like where the pink unicorn comes in and saying, oh, well, here we are. That's, you know, they have a disability. Well, let's work with the situation here. Let's look at the person of I mean, rather than just putting like a label on it, but like kind of the as you would say, Michael, like the kind of tongue tied on that one, but it's I guess the person's scenario of who they are, of working with them. I guess that's the easiest way of wording that one. Because everyone is unique in their own way, and they're in their own awesome way.
We're approaching close to 5 minutes to the hour, so I didn't know if we wanted to start wrapping up, making closing comments.
I mean, I guess that today it was a really wonderful session. You know, and I value your time, Michael, and definitely I'd love to have you come back on, and we can further a discussion where we left off another time when it suits your needs on your schedule. And I learned a lot from you today.
This was a good episode, yeah.
It's really, really
a good follow-up, actually, a really good follow-up.
Yeah.
Lock in step with what we actually talked about yesterday. It actually it was like a complimentary piece. So it kind of went like this. If you go from yesterday to today, everything kind of went like this today.
It really intertwined with that, and you know, we've been really emphasizing a lot lately, you know, about stigma, and as about it's okay to have a disability. It's okay to be who you are, and not be singled out because institutions say, well, you know, you don't have that worthiness, so you don't belong. That's just, you know, whatever. No, it's not whatever. It's, you know, it's accept it, work with the person. Let's make this country a better place for all Canadians with
big one.
Yes.
We are the
one for me.
world. We are the children.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that song. I was thinking about that actually last night. We Are the World, right? And when all those artists got together,
yeah,
there's a new one.
There's actually for people that are interested. I watched it. It's on Netflix. So people that have Netflix, go and watch. There's a documentary about that, and it's fascinating actually.
What's it called?
I think it's called The Greatest Night in Music. I think it's called the Greatest Night. And when you think about it, I mean, they brought everybody that was a big name, everybody in one room for one night. It was, you know, and it, like, when you think about it, it was really, really, really incredible what they did. So
it's getting. So I'm going to put in my.
Yeah, it was a really fascinating documentary to watch. Actually, it was really, really fun to watch that one.
I'd love to watch it. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I love music. I think music is one of the main solutions that we can look to. Reading poetry, for example, check out macromichael.com. Also, my podcast is Macro Michael. Don't judge a book by its cover. You know, and there's a lot of people that, you know, make judgments right away. Don't do that. Take a step back and look at the big picture. And also, you know, everyone has feelings, everyone has behaviors. There's reasons for these behaviors that you don't understand, that you don't know about. So don't pass a judgment right away. And yeah, we are the world, and let's make that happen.
Yeah, great.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That's a good way to end the
good mic
show.
drop. Good mic drop,
yes,
Mike.
I love that mic drop.
A literal mic drop.
Yeah. Totally. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. And well, first of all, I want to thank you, Michael, for coming on today. And definitely, I'm going to have you come back if you'd love to come back in the very near future. Yeah. You know, and just for everyone watching and listening later on the podcast, just know that you are all welcome in our community as society. Like, you are all great people, and you know, there's so much to give. You have so much to give in this world. You know, if it's not just for you, just being you, that's what you're giving, is just being you, and recognizing that it's okay to have a disability. It's okay for being who you are. It's what society needs to learn to work with you and make things accessible, giving you the proper financial resources, giving you the tools to help you flourish in how you are. I mean, who you want to be. Yeah, I mean, and just in general, it's just yeah, like I've learned that in life, it's never take things for granted, because life is so short. And I've learned that actually. I actually was taught that actually from an instructor that I had, is that, Brent, just be you. Just be you. And people like you for who you are. You like yourself. You have to like yourself first. If you like yourself, you're going to flourish out, and people are going to see your personality for who you are. And it always stuck with me. And she said, you have a knack, and you need to find out what that knack is going forward. And, well, personality wise, I mean, it's I think it's just bringing people together for all their purposes of their well-being, for being who they are, and knowing that it's okay to talk about how they feel. And that's why I always welcome people to come onto the show. It's like, hey, it's okay, like, come on, just talk. I mean, just chill, you know, just chill and say what's on your mind. How are you feeling? How is, you know, your day going? Regardless of how government is dealing with things, how are you doing? Like, so yeah, like, you want to be the next guest on the show, reach out to us, and reach out to daddybentlegs.com. Reach out to Neil's email address. You'll see it on the bottom of the show today. All the contact information. Reach out to me. I won't bite, don't worry. You know, and I want the guests to feel very comfortable, and just like Michael today, it's been a great pleasure having you on.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah,
it's been great, guys.
Yeah.
Good chat.
Yeah, thank you. And everyone, thank you very much for tuning in today. Have a great day, and we'll see you on the next podcast. Take care.
Okay, bye.